it's Dory. Welcome back to another card making video here at my YouTube. I am happy that you are here. Today, I'm going to show you how to use a frame to build some dimension around the outside edge of your cards for a fun, striking result. Once again, as in my last video, I'm going to be using mostly material from the Simon Says Stamp 2023 March kit. I have some extra Simon Says Stamp ink pads I'm going to use as well. We're going to be using primarily the tulip flower in the center, along with some ink blending and some die cutting. I have these stitched A2 rectangles from Simon Says Stamp and also some A2 layer dies from Waffle Flower. We're going to use those to build our frame. I went ahead and did a little bit of prep work off screen. I cut the 110-pound cardstock that's in the kit in half top ways. We're going to use this to create a side folding card. I also took the gray and the teal paper that were in the kit and I cut them in half at 5.5. No specific reason for that. I just wanted to be able to save part of what we needed for this card and then save the others for another project. Then I have some scrap white. This is just ordinary white paper that we're going to use to build some dimension. And then finally I have a piece of Neenah Solar White and 80-pound. We're going to do our stamping on this image. No specific size, it just needed to be big enough for me to use to have to die cut a little bit later. I'm going to go ahead now and build the frame. We're going to use the stitched rectangles and the A2 layer dies to create a frame for our card. We're only going to use the gray first and then we're going to use the white. Because I'm not looking to cut out a rectangle, I'm looking to make a frame. I am going to lay down the stitched rectangle die first, and then I'm going to take the outer or the largest A2 die that I selected and I'm going to put that inside of the die cut that I have laid down. When we put them together and we run them through our die cutting machine, both of those die cuts will cut simultaneously and we'll end up with a frame rather than just a rectangle. If I didn't put the die cut in there when I ran it through the machine, I would just end up with a rectangle with a stitched edge, which is great, but it's not what I'm trying to do for this card. I'm going to take a little bit of washi tape here and just hold those two dies in place so that they don't move around when I run them through my machine. Getting that all lined up, making sure that it didn't move. My A2 layer dies are a little warped. I need to figure out how to straighten them up a little bit. So I'm going to bring my Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine in here. Lovely Christmas present from my daughter. I was so excited. For years I had the old Cuttlebug, which was great, but it had definitely come to all of its uses. So, oh, and then I'm also super excited about using this magic mat from scrapbook.com. I haven't used it yet, but my cutting plates were getting pretty warped, so I was excited to try that. Roll that through there. It was a tight fit, but it actually cut very, very smoothly, and my machine wasn't on a very level surface, so it kind of bobbled around there. But in the end, I got it through there and set that off to the side and punch out my die here so I can get my frame out. The washi tape was a little bit sticky. I probably should have, masked it off a little bit because it did stick a little bit more. It had a little more stickiness to it than I wanted. I need to get some of that mint tape that you can use. That's on my wish list. Pop that out, that off of there. There we go. Remove the dies. And now you can see, because we used the two dies together, I had the frame. So I went ahead and off screen, I just repeated that process 3 more times, once with the gray cardstock and then 2 more with the plain white paper that we're going to use to just build some dimension behind our frame. I'm going to come in now with some liquid adhesive. I have the Lawn Fawn glue tube. I know Gina K Connect Glue is also very popular. I like this one from Lawn Fawn. And I just took it and I transferred it into this little mini bottle because I like the glue, or I like that needle point applicator. It means you can get glue into very tight spaces or little small spaces. And then I have a pair of tweezers to help me place it when I get ready to adhere the frames together. Coming down here, long, and I just went ahead and sped this part up because, you know, it's just me gluing the frame. I use the tweezers to get it all lined up, and because it's a liquid adhesive, it allows me to move it around a little bit. I put the 2 white frames together first, and then came in with the first gray frame and laid that on top. And then the last frame here, grab my tweezers, lay that down, get that just where I want it, press it all the way down, and then I will set that off to the side so it can dry while we go on to the next part. So this is the teal piece that I had ready to go, and I'm taking the second layer, A2 layer die that I have. And let me just say a word about the A2 layer dies. Yes, they are just rectangles, and yes, you could probably just cut it with your cutter, but notoriously, cutters don't always cut as straight as you think they do. So this way, by using the actual layer die, you know that you're going to get an actual true rectangle, which is important when you're trying to make sure that you're framing out things correctly. So I'm going to come in again with the with my die cutting machine and my Magic Mat, which may be my new favorite crafting thing that I've acquired as of late. I'm going to run that through there. It's also a good time for me to tell you that off screen, I ended up running this piece back through the machine with an embossing folder. I think I just forgot to have the recording done at that point. So now I'm going to take the other stitched rectangle from Simon Says Stamp that I had, and I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to cut it out of our Neenah 80-pound solar white cardstock. This is what we're actually going to do our stamping and our inking on. Again, just using a little piece of washi tape, and I'm going to speed this up just a little bit this time. Run that through there. Watch the magic happen. There we go. And then I'm going to pop that off of there. That all done. And this is what we're going to do our stamping and our blending on. And like I said, this is where I ran it through my machine with the Dainty Dots, Swiss Dots, old Cuttlebug embossing folder that I had. So now I'm going to do some ink blending on the Neenah Solar White cardstock that we had. I'm going to use the Positively Saturated Tide Pool ink pad that was in the kit from Simon Says Stamp. This time, instead of using the Dome Foam mini applicators that I used before, I'm going to use these blending brushes. These are just blending brushes I got off of Amazon. I know many companies sell them. These are great when you want just a very simple, soft background instead of a more saturated background or a harsher background, which is what you'll get with when you use the Dome Foam applicators. So I'm just using the largest one that I have right here, and I'm inking it up, starting off the edge a little bit, and I'm just going to bring it in kind of halfway down and along the top, and just speeding it up here. It's very similar to just ink blending with Distress Oxide inks. You just get a much smaller or a much softer look with that. So coming in again and just blending it until I get a result that I am satisfied with. Turning it, and I wanted it to be a little darker at the top than the bottom, so it sort of fades out. And coming in with a different brush, I'm going to do the green, which will essentially represent the grass in the image in the background. Just using a little piece of scratch paper there to keep my fingerprints off of the blue that we already did. Getting some good coverage in there. Like I said, this was a very simple, very soft background that I was going for. Okay, so now on to the stamping. I'm gonna take our pretty little background we just made, and I'm gonna stamp the leaves first, or the stem for the flower first. Pull that off of there, and then I'm gonna grab the little tulip, which we're gonna use that as well. Using my little mini MISTI today. I do have both the full size and the mini MISTI. If I'm just using a small piece of paper, I just pull out my mini MISTI. It's just a little easier to grab. So I'm going to put that down there, make sure it's in the bottom corner, lay my magnet down so that it doesn't move around, put my stem where I want it to be, and then get that all nice and lined up there. Close my door, pick up the image, press that down. And now I'm gonna just make sure that it moved a little bit, so I'm just making sure to adjust that paper. I'm gonna use some Lucky from Simon Says Stamp. I thought the green, that bright green, would be really pretty on the background and would stand out since we already colored our background a bit. Close the door. Get my handy dandy little air hockey, not really an air hockey tool, push that down, and I'm going to go ahead and ink that up again just to make sure I get a good deep impression on there. And that's our stem. And now we'll do the tulip. Oh, clean that off with my little chamois. There's my flower. Okay, I'm gonna line that up right where I want it to be. Put that in there. Close the door. Oh, forgot my magnet. There we go. I wish they had a stick and stamp mat for the mini MISTI. That would be great. I would for sure purchase that. Maybe there is one. If there is one and you know there's one, send me a message. Let me know because I'll get on that. I'm using Hot Lips from Simon Says Stamp. Some of these older colors I haven't used in a long time, so it was great to bring those fun, bright colors out again for this card. Laid that down. Once again, inking it up again just to make sure I get a good, bold image there. And that's our pretty little tulip done. So now on to the sentiment. I'm using the die cut that was in the kit, the Happy Wishes, and I cut it out twice, once from white cardstock and one from gray cardstock. Make sure too that you save all the little pieces because you'll need those to put back in the center of, the A and the P's and the E, etc. This die cuts out both the shadow and the actual word. And so it's kind of like you get 2 for 1 because whatever you don't use, you can just save for a different project. I'm going to use the white background with the gray letters, and I will just save the other one, the gray shadow with the white letters, for a future project. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to assemble our card. We pretty much have all of the pieces ready for it finally. So I'm taking the 4.5 or 4 1/4 note card, and I'm going to lay that in here in my scoring board, and I'm going to use my stylus here. This is an old school stylus, and if you've been crafting for as many years as I have, you remember the rub-ons back in the day, and so the other side was for rub-ons. So I'm gonna make my score line at 5.5 because we're creating a side folding card, which will be 5.5 by 4.25. Fold that over and grab my bone folder really quick and just make me a nice little seal there. And there's our side folding card. And now I'm going to lay it flat just to make it easier for me to adhere everything. Sometimes it's easier when you have a lot of stuff to glue down to just go ahead and lay it flat. It's just an easier surface to work with. Once again, I'm going to come in with my liquid adhesive and add that all the way down each side. Get a nice even line there. Those needle applicators are fantastic for these tiny little edges and rims and stuff that you might have. So I highly recommend that you get those. Carefully gonna flip that over and lay that down, push it all the way down. And the other thing about the liquid adhesive, remember, is that it's pliable, it's forgiving. You can kind of move it around until you get it where you want it to be. And that gives us our outer edge of our frame. So now I'm going to come in and I'm just going to add the teal piece next. You can see a little more of that embossing that I did. For larger pieces like this, I grabbed my tape runner rather than liquid adhesive. I tend to only use liquid adhesive on very small, narrow things. Otherwise, I'm a tape runner girl. Just add that in there. Push that down, kind of sped this part up just a little bit because it's just me, gluing stuff down. With our little stamped image piece again, put that, knowing where I want that to go, adding some adhesive on it, and get that in there. And then again, coming in with the sentiment now, I'm going to do the outer part or the shadow part first. Just kind of figure out where I want it to go. Getting that there. And then there were some little like flecks on there that I had to pull out that weren't quite on the, that were left over from when I die cut it. So I always take my time to know exactly where I want something to go. I'm going to come in once again with my liquid adhesive, speeding that up just a little bit, putting that all around the little edges and where I want that to go. There we go. That all in there. Grabbing my tweezers. Tweezers are an essential tool in my opinion. They're just great for laying things down, picking things up where you want them to be. Just a simple thing, but I reach for my tweezers almost every time I craft. Laying that down, the Y and the S are up a little bit on that outer edge frame, but it wasn't enough for me to use dimension adhesive on the rest of the sentiment. Repeating the process with the inside of the sentiment, just going all around with the liquid adhesive. Grab that and I'm gonna pop that in there in place, pushing that down. And then I set that off to the side for a couple minutes just to let it finish drying very quickly. And now I'm going to add a few other just finishing touches. You'll notice also that I went ahead and added all the little white pieces into the sentiment with the A and the P. I'm just going to use my Spectrum Noir glitter pen here and add some shine around the letters. This is one of my favorite things to do, especially with a big, bold sentiment, It just adds some very subtle sparkle, and I am all about adding little bits of sparkle where you can. I'm gonna speed this up. I just went over the letters carefully, and it can be a little bit hard to notice in the video, but when you see it in real life and you tilt the card and the light catches it, it's just a nice little sparkle and shine that I enjoy, and that I hope the person that receives it enjoys as well. Sometimes those little details just really add something extra to your card. And now I'm coming in with some Ranger Glossy Accents, and because, once again, I'm all about having shine and shimmer, gonna go over the tulip or the flower. Here I'm just using the end of the nozzle and laying down a nice even coat. Glossy Accents is one of those things that just, like I said, it just adds some shine. When it dries, it's almost like adding an epoxy layer. If you remember back in the day, like puffy epoxy stickers were huge. I remember as a kid collecting those. If you had sticker book, the best thing was if you had like either the scratch and sniff or the puffy epoxy type stickers. And this kind of gives you the same effect. It's also very forgiving. It will dry clear. It can come out a little milky, but rest assured it will dry clear. So again, just using the tip of the bottle and then going over the 3 little dots there at the top. And I will set that off to the side and let it dry. And you can see there's just that little bit of shine there. And because I just couldn't resist, I had to add, a little bit more. So I added some more glossy accents, just like little, raindrops, you could call them, in the sky, around the edges. It just adds little detail, little fun things to finish off your card that are simple. Some little like dewdrops down in the grass. And that is the last thing that will finish up our card. A couple more, there's just never enough. And that finishes our card. Here is another couple of close-ups. I hope you enjoy. I hope it inspires you to try something new in your creativity. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for coming, and I will see you again next time.